this week, live at the Book Warehouse, I am joined by author, former radio broadcaster,
Yes.
infamous penny pincher,
former television host,
former host,
film director.
a face made for radio.
Yeah, absolutely. Face made for podcasts.
Steve Burgess.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
I'm real pleased to be here. I'm pleased that I made it through the crowds. That, this may not be heard on the night, but for those who didn't know, Canada just defeated Qatar for their first ever World Cup victory, and I basically had to cycle through the crowd to get here. And the crowd was remarkably well behaved.
I feel like the crowd was subdued because I think most of the city didn't even know the game was actually on
Right.
until it was about halfway through. But we're here for a very important reason.
Very important reason.
Your latest book,
Yes.
Cheapskate in Lotus Land.
Philosophy and Practice of Living Well on a Small Budget.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
I'm
taking
here
that
to
for
help.
me. Right? And before we get deep into the book itself, which has had not sure the word, I want to be hyperbolic and say it's had a profound effect on me, but that does feel maybe like a recency bias thing. It's charged me up to feel like maybe I can survive living here,
Right.
But before we get deeper into the book, I want to backtrack a little bit. I gave you my own version of a bumbling Chiron, but I always like to ask guests from their perspective,
Right.
who the hell are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm old enough so that I've done a great number of things professionally in my life, but I can say that being a writer is what I always wanted to be. Being an author of books is what I always wanted to be. So being an author is, to me, that's the highest compliment that I could be paid, is to be called one. I used to be a disc jockey and a television host, and I was working in film for a while. I set pins in a bowling alley. Oh, my first real job was a gas jockey. But
That was my first job.
It was a gas jockey.
Yeah, it was my favorite job. I loved it.
What station?
It was in Calgary. I worked at it was a Calgary co-op. It was a co-op gas bar in Crow.
I worked at Gulf, which I
Okay.
don't think it's around anymore, in Brandon, Manitoba.
Oh.
So when I started working radio, I could say, well, this isn't my first station. But anyway, no, I always wanted to be a writer, and I hope I get to keep being one, because that's what I love to do most.
Yeah. So, as you just said, you've spent decades, as a journalist, as a broadcaster, in a way you could say it's sort of someone who watches and analyzes other people for a living.
Sure.
What was it about this moment that convinced you to sort of turn your lens onto yourself and your own habits?
Well, full disclosure, I've done that throughout my entire writing career.
Sure. Yeah.
And in fact, that's how, it's not exactly how I started, but very early in my writing career, writing pieces for the Vancouver Sun and other publications, a lot of what I did was personal.
Right.
I think it came naturally to me to be a storyteller. Really, the challenge for me was to branch out from that.
Right.
It was to stop being so personal.
Yeah.
And this is a story I've told before, but I do love to tell it, that David Beers, who is the founder of the Tyee, where I'm a regular columnist, was one of their charter writers. It was David Beers who was bugging me for years to try to expand beyond the personal story.
Right. Okay.
Because I was always writing personal stuff, and then I was trying, after my first book came out, it was a memoir in 2011, a book called Who Killed Mom. And then I was trying to get another book deal, and I was failing. And Dave kept telling me, you need to do more. You need to stretch out.
Right.
You need to, not just write about yourself, but make it about something larger. So that was the real challenge for me. It wasn't going personal. It was going wide.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Dave was kind enough to say, well, once you got it, Steve, you really did get it.
Yeah.
Because Reservations, the Pleasures and Perils of Travel, which was my previous book, came out 2 years ago, and this book, Cheapskate and Lotus Land, they're both very similar in that sense, in that I start with personal stories, but then use those to jump off into wider discussions of issues that affect, society. And with Reservations, it was the travel industry. And with this book, it's personal finance. Yeah. And also not just personal finance, but also corporate finance.
Yeah.
And how companies like Loblaws, Walmart, and Costco do business.
Well, and this is I'll admit, when I was starting the book, and right in the first chapter or two, you're talking about You've lived in the same apartment for years, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's in this beautiful area that
Yeah.
that for someone like me, you know, I moved here the first time I moved here in 2010. I was here for a couple of years, moved away, and then moved back in 22. And you know, there's no hope for me to move into somewhere like you know, anywhere down by the English Bay or anywhere like that. Just completely priced out. So I will admit, the very start of the book, as I'm reading about your setup, I was sort of like, okay, bud, let's hear what your opinion on how to survive in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
First get super lucky.
right?
Yeah.
But the way you reflect not only on that, you know, chance and that situation, but also why other people currently aren't able to do that.
Right.
Which is, I think, the far more important
Right.
Exploration. What I really appreciate is that you don't give necessarily declarative answers so much as like, this is what's happening and this is why it's developing, right?
And that's something that I struggled with a little bit. I mean, you know, the book was the publisher's idea, and I really worried about, you know, I keep using this example, but I don't know if you remember Stephen Colbert back when he played the character
Yes.
of the right wing,
the Bill O'Reilly version.
and he had that book, I Am America and So Can You.
Yes.
I love that title. And so in my mind, I was always like, don't be I Am America and So Can You.
Yeah.
Don't be like, I am saving money and here's my prescription, because it's like your situation, Steve Burgess, is your own to some extent. So I tried to make sure that I wasn't too prescriptive and wasn't wagging a finger and saying, be like me, because some of it is luck. And part of it is just acknowledging the situations that other people are in.
Yeah.
And trying to see how people can make the best of their situation. And trying to give advice where possible, but also just examining the situation that people find themselves in.
I there was a section of the book that I read the same week that my therapist had given me a very similar piece of advice, which was funny, it clicked. But you were talking about this idea of understanding your impulses, right? You know, and understanding, you know, because, and you talk about this, you know, for you, there is no impulse to do this or that, because it's just kind of where the, you know, I call them the kind of like the skating rinks in your brain, you know, some have been grooved in certain different directions. And for you, those impulses exist somewhere else, and they don't necessarily exist around impulse spending and things like that, you know? Whereas for someone else, the first step isn't make a budget. It's to really understand what are your impulses and what are those kind of activations for you to go and just sort of mindlessly but excitedly do something, whatever it might be, right? You know.
Well, one thing, I have gotten to the point where my impulses are, for the most part, under control, but I have, you know, one of the things I deal with in the book is that I have to acknowledge that I'm an obsessive personality.
Yes.
And that has a good side and a bad side. Now, I have managed to harness that obsessive personality in ways that are beneficial to me. I think one phrase I use somewhere in the book is, it's like getting a tiger because it eats rats. You know, it can go very bad.
Yes.
And it can turn very bad. And there have been times, and even in relative recent history, where things have gone bad.
Of course.
I mentioned, for example, that I used to be a TV host. So there was a time there when I had a little bit more money and I had 6 months off. And that's when I discovered that I loved traveling. And when I went to Italy, I discovered that for the first time ever that I began to take an interest in fashion.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell you, I went a little bit off the rails. And then the obsession switched from good to bad. And I today have a closet full of Italian shoes that never get worn. I ride my bike around. I'm not going to wear Italian shoes, but they were so beautiful. I had to keep buying the damn things. So I'm not immune,
of course,
to the impulses that go wrong. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, I had a serious drinking problem when I was young, and that was obviously an obsessive, compulsive kind of behavior gone wrong when I was 24. So yeah, I sort of got some of my problems out of the way early.
Yeah.
You know? And started getting closer to the straight and narrow. So, so but it's a challenge. I mean, if you are someone who's all in or all out, which I am,
Same.
it can go wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might be actually, as you're kind of expressing that, I'm realizing I think that's an element of what, what I attach to in the book, because
Right.
I'm similar. I have, you know, other similar conditions and things like that, and obsessive tendencies and things,
Right.
and so yeah, it's just that mine aren't necessarily the one-to-one of I'm overspending and whatever,
Right.
but
Well, I
yeah,
mean, I get weird little behaviors
same, yeah,
that I recognize. It's like, okay, this isn't normal
yeah,
what you're doing,
yep,
Steve.
yep,
But for the most part, like, hopefully
yeah,
they're just minor and not important.
yeah,
Like when I was traveling, I'll tell you one that always killed me. I don't think I mentioned it in the book, but when I was traveling, I got, oh, I'm going to save all the hotel shampoo. And they used to give, they don't do this as much anymore, but they used to give you little bottles. So what I would do is I would take a water bottle
okay,
and I would collect all of
just
the,
in
I would
one,
pour the little bottles into a water bottle. But here's where it got weird. I got so that I wanted to get every single drop of
right,
shampoo. And I would sit
right,
there and wait. And I would hold that bottle.
yeah,
I'd be looking, there's a drop that's
there's
going to drop.
one
And there's
more,
one more.
yeah,
And I would be looking at this and going, Steve, if you could have an out of body experience right now
what
and
would you
look
be
at what would you be seeing? What would you be thinking? You're a crazy person. So, but I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
minor little things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
You know?
Oh my God, that just reminds me. I haven't traveled much recently, but when I was obsessed with the Gideon Bibles.
Oh,
Love hotel Bibles.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
something so entertaining about them to me.
By the way, are they edited?
I have no idea. I've never been able to, because I've never been able to find the same copy twice. Right?
Really?
They're always weirdly, like, they're maybe not. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing
Right.
every time. But it's always different intros, different
Oh, that's
different
interesting.
print setups, and
Yeah.
and that's what always fascinated me. Right? Is it would be sort of like, what's it going to look like this time?
Yeah.
And then on top of that,
Yeah.
I would speaking of out of body
Yeah.
bizarre behaviors, is I started finding, people would write in them.
In the Gideon Bibles.
Yeah. And they've, I have some that I have a small collection. I've whittled it down, I've got rid of some of them, but people have written, like, I have one that's someone had decided to write their own new testament and their new revelation in the liner notes of the Bible and things like that. And so I just find those so fascinating,
Honestly, like, I don't know if you had enough of those, that would be an interesting book.
right?
An interesting book. Like what people have written in Gideon's Bible.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating.
It's always been a personal little peccadillo of mine,
Well,
right?
But no, we're off topic.
Right,
The very first book proposal I ever made, I managed to get an agent, and we made it. It was going to be called Mutants of Christ. And what it was going to be was strange variations of Christianity around the world.
Oh yeah.
But
I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't sell it. We couldn't sell it.
Right.
The craze there had been a little boomlet
Sure.
in religious Christian books, and it was over. And it is a tough sell when you're writing a book that isn't for a religious audience, but it is a religious themed book.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell.
Basically a book for me to read.
Exactly.
I'd buy the copy, right? But they also stopped. I stopped finding them. Is the other thing. That's why I kind of stopped.
Right.
Why I stopped collecting, because they
I don't
stopped
think
putting them.
I don't think there's as many of them.
I don't even know. I don't know who the Gideons are. I don't know what their deal is. I don't know if they're still around. I hope they're okay wherever they are.
I used to know who they were, but I think they're just like a Christian charity.
Okay,
I think they're basically an evangelical.
Gotcha.
Christian charity.
Okay, so maybe I don't wish them super well, is
right.
Yeah, right.
And it's I wonder, this is, and boy, now we're just speculating.
We're
way off in speculating. But I wonder if the lack of Gideon Bibles these days reflects a change in the ownership of motels. Like it,
that's an interesting domino.
Yeah. Like, I mean, back in the day, there were probably a lot more white families.
And
Protestant white families.
What's the connection, and why are they coming in?
Yeah, and then more and more immigrant families who came in and start buying up.
Yeah,
and suddenly the Bibles are
not coming.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh my God, I hadn't even thought of that direction.
Yeah.
Well,
Gideon Bibles, like
right.
Okay, Gideon Bibles as a theme, like you could have the things that you've written in them, like who are the Gideons? And
The
why are
history
there
of
few?
the
Why are there fewer?
yeah.
There's a book there.
I was gonna say I might need to cut this part out because I need to copyright it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Before anybody gets
Right.
copyright,
Yeah.
copyright,
I was
copyright.
gonna say TM,
All
whatever.
rights reserved.
back to you though.
Right.
So circling back to something about the book. You describe yourself as obsessively cheap.
Right.
Not somebody who's performing any level
Right.
of frugality.
Right.
Where did that awareness first kind of spring up for you? Where did you realize it wasn't just a habit, but kind of a core element of your identity?
Boy, that's a good question. Like, I don't know that I thought that much about it when I was a kid. But I was definitely doing things when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The first sort of expression of it was that I was an obsessive saver of things, not just money, but things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I was a kid, I developed a liking for what we called swamp water, which was buying different kinds of soft drinks and mixing them.
I would do that with Slurpees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would splurge on big bottles of soft drinks.
Yeah.
But then what I would do is I'd stick them in the back of my parents' fridge and save them till they went completely dead flat.
Right.
And were useless. But I couldn't use them. It's like, no, I'm going to save them.
Yeah.
So that obsessive saving goes all the way back. But I know that, like, my very first radio job, I was 19 years old and I had a drinking problem. And this was 1978 and I was getting $525 a month. $525 a month. Eventually got a raise to $565. Woo!
That sounds like it was pretty good in 78 though.
Yeah. Well, my rent
decent?
was only $150.
Right. So you're doing
So
pretty good.
that's better than I'm doing now in terms of percentage of income.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing is, I drank too much in those days. But by the end of 10 months in Thompson, Manitoba, which was an expensive place to live, relatively speaking, I'd saved $650.
Right. Okay.
So I think maybe at that point I was aware of the fact that I was a good saver. And then I think maybe I think a lot of times the way we define ourselves is by looking at other people.
Sure.
And I began to look at other people and thought, well, I've got money in the bank and they don't.
Right.
What's that about?
Yes.
And so I began to see that was the kind of person I was. I didn't get a car till I was about 26.
Oh, wow.
And one reason was because I looked around at my friends who had cars and they're always broke.
That was a big reason why I think I got my first car when I was late 20s at the youngest, you know. And it was for that exact same reason. I was like, well, it's a waste of money.
Right.
Like I've got legs, they work.
Yeah.
Right?
And also I was never good at
Right.
auto shop or anything like
Sure,
that. I took home ec.
Yeah. Right. I was like, I've talked about this many times with podcasts. I was the only boy in dance class in high school. So I was like, I'm not care about cars. It's like, it's got four wheels, it turns on. I don't know.
Wasn't good at any guy stuff.
No.
There was this is true. I think I might have put this in the book. I took wood shop in grade 8. I think you had to. And then at the end of the year, the shop teacher actually presented me with a big plaque, a big necklace, a rope so I could hang it around my neck, and a big plaque, and it was marked Royal Order of Wood Butchers. because any birdhouse that I build would be condemned before any bird could move in. It would have been a crime against nature for any bird to 3 birds killed in house collapse. So anyway, no, I was never good at that kind of stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
Looking at kind of the Vancouver angle of things, you live near Stanley Park,
right,
in Lost Lagoon, one of the most, arguably one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in North America, like just an unbelievable place to live. How do you think about the tension around, loving the area that you live in, and then the cost that comes with, most people in that area?
Right. Well, the thing is, one of the things I write about a lot in the book is that saving money ultimately becomes a matter of priorities, where if you're someone like me, you save I save, therefore I am, I save because I'm cheap. But once you get to a certain point, hopefully you start to examine things and go, well, wait a minute, I'm not saving just to have a lot of money in the bank when I die. I should be saving for some kind of purpose. And one of my purposes developed in midlife is travel. Um, Not worrying about money so that I'm not stressed about money. That's another purpose. But the other thing is, once I got to Vancouver, once I got to, I was working in radio, and I worked jumping from radio station to radio station. And I came here to work for the late lamented 14 Seafun Radio. But once I got here, my focus shifted. Up until that point, it's like, oh, what's a bigger radio station I can go to?
Sure.
Then I got to Vancouver, and I thought, how can I stay in Vancouver? That became more important. When I got fired from my radio job after 5 years, I wasn't thinking, what's the next radio station I can go to? I was thinking,
what do I do here?
What do I do here in Vancouver?
Sure. Yeah.
So that becomes a matter of priorities. So yes, I live in a beautiful place, and my priority is to stay there.
Yeah.
And I hope I'll be able to.
Yeah.
The company that runs my building is a very good company. And so I don't, knock on wood, but I don't think I have to worry about rental eviction.
Right.
And so I think hopefully I should be able to hang in there. But that is a matter. It's a matter of identifying what your financial priorities are in life. And in mine, and one of my priorities is keeping my apartment.
Yeah. Looking out, kind of Vancouver. I think I'm with you. I'm in a stage of my life right now where I'm like, I'm in a career transition, but I'm like, what can I do to stay here rather than, but Vancouver has its own very particular flavor of not only kind of economy, but just wealth. There's the understated outdoorsy stuff, but there's this kind of like underlying smugness. Do you find that do you find that the cheapskate culture fits here? Or is it sort of like a quietly radical to opt out of that sort of like Lululemon $18 cocktail version of the city?
Yeah, that's a real good question. And the thing is, I think, I wonder if sometimes if I live too much in my own world to really understand that. When you put out a book like this, it's natural that you're going to draw people to your flag. So I have a lot of people saying to me, I'm like that too. I'm like that too.
Yes.
But I don't think that I went into writing the book thinking this is an expression of Vancouver,
Of course. Yeah.
But whether it's a Vancouver question or a larger question, I don't know. To me, it's more like a larger cultural question, like the culture of materialism versus the culture of something closer to simplicity. It doesn't have to be simplicity, but the idea that consumption is not the be all end all. I think that's something that's part of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then there is also in Vancouver and beyond Vancouver, that culture of acquisition. And I've never identified with it. I've never liked it, never understood it. And so, but whether when I wrote the book, I'm not sure that I was really aware of whether I was going to be tapping into a bunch of like-minded souls.
Sure.
Or not. I hope I am.
Yeah.
I hope I am.
That actually, that sort of builds right into the next question, just to kind of keep digging at that a little bit. You've been here since late 80s,
right.
and I'm curious, what have you watched happen in the city in regards to its relationship with money, and what do you think that's done to the people's sense of what a normal Vancouver life is sort of quote unquote supposed to look like?
Well, it's not exactly a news bulletin that the city has become more expensive to live in. Now, everywhere.
hot take here.
Right, here we go.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen. We interrupt this broadcast. Do not panic. Steve Burgess says that Vancouver is more expensive now. Film at 11. No, like the thing is, everywhere has become more expensive,
Yeah.
but I think Vancouver is ahead of the pack
Yes.
in terms of greater expense. And a lot of people, I think with reason, point to Expo 86 that kickstarted development and really changed the city. I really think, one book that I pulled out of the library as research for an upcoming project, which I can maybe talk about later. But I pulled out Guy Bennett's Guy's Guide to the Flip Side.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you know it. It's a book.
I remember. I know the name.
He-
The author. I know the author's name.
Guy Bennett, he went on to direct films as well.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's where I know his name.
Yeah, he's still with us too. And his daughter Sonia had a real film career. But anyway, he wrote Guy's Guide to the Flip Side, and it was self-published in I think 86 or 87, and then it was picked up by somebody. I think Arsenal Pulp.
Okay.
And because it was popular enough as a self-published book. But
God, that's impressive.
yeah, no, I know a lot.
Yeah.
Very few people get that. Terry Fallis did it.
Yeah.
With big success. But you look at that book and talk about a bygone Vancouver. It was written before Expo 86.
Gotcha.
And man, oh man, it's Vancouver. He's focusing on the sleazier part of Vancouver.
Of course, sure.
But oh my goodness, it looks like a more down marketplace.
Right. Yeah.
Things that neighborhoods and businesses that would just never survive the onslaught of real estate prices. Yeah, I mean, just the value of land is like a wildfire.
Yeah.
It just burns through neighborhoods. Yeah. It's a scourge. Here we are on South Main, and I'm just so thrilled that South Main is still has its character.
Yeah.
I just, like a lot of people, I'm sure I just live in fear that somehow land prices are going to burn through here and everything's going to be cell phone stores.
It feels like they're trying to,
right?
Like they're really, a lot of my friends live on Main. I live way out in Marpole. I live on the boonies just to try and save money, sure. But all my friends on Main, they're living in constant fear of getting renovated, and they're basically like counting the days because at this point it's inevitable, but the thing is that the thing that sucks the most for them is that it's like there's not really anything that's actually going in its place.
Right.
It's just like development for development's sake,
right?
And it's just this flattening and this kind of like, I don't know. It's I've described it a few times on the show as this idea of like just turning everything into the Apple Store. It's just making it just flat, glass, boring, soulless, just frictionless, right?
I mean, a lot of people talk about, they use as the showcase street for that is Robson Street, in the sense that Robson Street used to be, and this would be before your time, but I remember it, used to be something called the Robsonstrasse. And it was European delis, and it was schnitzel restaurants and quirky businesses. And now it's basically... Well, it turned into the same stuff you see in the Champs-Élysées or any other.
It's just a mall.
Yeah. Now, having said that, you can't deny that Robson has a certain life and vitality to it.
Sure.
But nonetheless, give me a place like South Main any day.
Yeah.
There's a barber shop just down the street where you can sit in a Spider-Man car,
right?
And get your haircut. Now, I asked her, and she said, if you can fit in a Spider-Man car, we will cut your hair. So if you are small of stature, age is no barrier, and you can sit in a Batmobile or a police car,
risk it.
Get your hair cut. Oh, and by the way, get this plug in, because this was a shocking moment. A shocking moment at the Book Warehouse. I came in here once. We are at the Main Street location. We are almost directly across the street from Hawker's Delight, which is probably my favorite cheap restaurant in all of Vancouver. And the staffers at the Book Warehouse that I was speaking to across the street from Hawker's Delight did not know that it existed.
They'd never been?
They didn't even know it was there.
Oh my God.
They didn't even know it was there. And it's a fabulous place, and the prices are still reasonable. Malaysian food, Hawker's Delight, South Main, near King Edward.
I have to admit, I haven't been back since I went vegan last year,
Oh, okay.
a little over a year ago.
But
And
they have vegetable fritters
I
there.
was gonna say, I
Yeah.
feel like I can go back. I just a lot of places that I used to love, I
Right.
don't go back to because I'm
Right.
just like it's gonna break my heart when I can't have, right?
Like I can't remember now. Someone is gonna out there listening to this is gonna shut me down. But I'm trying the gado gado
Mm,
salad. I'm trying to think if there's a meat element in that. I'm not sure if there is.
I'm
But I'll bet if there
I'm
is
sure
one,
there's options,
yeah,
right?
there's options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So but
But
no,
that place is iconic. I
it's
love it. Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
And shame on the book warehouse staff
We gotta get out that
who did
shame
not
bell.
know that it was there. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, the scourge of real estate prices
Yeah.
is something that just seems relentless, and you just hope against hope that the city can retain its character.
It's something I've been kind of digging in both on the show and then on my own time is around this idea of like you hear often about this idea of like the loneliness epidemic and things like that. And I actually don't think that is real. I don't think it's actually a loneliness epidemic, at least in the way that we frame it. I think that it's a sort of a societal isolation and we're the things that we're participating in it willingly.
Yeah.
Because there's things like, there's data that's showing that a huge sort of trigger for feelings of loneliness, feelings of lack of connection is overconsumption.
Right.
And we buy things to kind of like show others and to show ourselves who we are, or to try and show who we belong to, or these kinds of things. But they end up not filling the space that we're actually trying to fill. Right.
I know it's irrational, but I get angry when I see pickup truck ads.
Exactly.
I get
100%.
angry.
Yeah.
It's just like, who is falling for this? Somebody is, because they wouldn't keep running the ads.
Well, and they're everywhere.
And they're
too,
everywhere.
right?
Yeah. It's just, you buy this truck and you will be this kind of person.
Yeah. I mean, that to me that's the insipidness of most advertisement.
Yeah.
Is like, if you get this haircut and you're gonna get laid.
Now the thing is,
at
least with the truck thing, okay, I don't support buying the huge trucks, but at least you have a truck. The worst one now is the sports betting and the
Yes.
online casinos.
Yeah.
Because that's the same thing. It's like, be a high roller. And it's like, you fools, like they are just playing you like fiddles.
Yep.
And in that case, you don't end up with a truck. You don't end up with nothing.
Exactly. You're lucky if you have that cardboard box, right?
Yeah,
But I'm curious, building out of that, do you think that cheapness, said non-derogatory, right? But cheapness,
Frugality.
yeah. Do you think that it'd be its own kind of isolation, or do you find that opting out of this kind of consumption culture actually helps connect to a different type of people, or maybe a different community that you wouldn't necessarily have access to?
Well, that's a big, it's all the way you play it. And that's a big topic. I mean, there's no doubt it can be isolating. And I think in my case it was. I'll tell you this. I've said it before, when the pandemic hit, my life did not change one bit. Because I'd already stopped going to restaurants and I'd already stopped going to cafes.
Yeah.
I spent all my time at home and now I was getting government checks for that. So it's like, this is okay.
Yep.
So for me, frugality did become a means of isolation. But I also know that in writing this book, I talked to people from the Buy Nothing movement.
Yes.
And also people from the Freegan movement. And these are people who believe very much in community and they believe in exchanging and helping people out. So there's no doubt that having an anti-consumption lifestyle can put you in touch with your people and can be a very social thing to do. For me, it's like I'm more antisocial to begin with. So I didn't do that. But I was surprised. There was Michelle Gamage, who is a fellow Tyee writer. She was talking to me about how, like, people would be cutting her hair, She would go online and say, anybody want to cut my hair?
Yeah.
And
the Buy Nothing groups actually are some of my favorite things. I found, like, because they do like just for the neighborhood. So
Right.
it's like, I'm part of the like Buy Nothing Marpool, and I love those people so much. I don't know a single one of them by name, mostly because I'm garbage with names, but like anytime something pops up, it's,
Yeah.
and everybody's a block away. So it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
No, it's very, that's a great community thing.
Mhm.
And, they talk about community fridges,
Yeah.
they take some, leave some and everything.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw this online. Somebody started a movement. We need to put a stop to the free libraries. Like it's like
I'm sorry, put a stop.
we need to stop the insidious spread of free libraries. Who knows who's going to be reading Dan Brown, Da Vinci's Inquest in your neighborhood because some irresponsible person put it in the free library. It is parody,
Oh
but
my God. I was going to say, I really hope that they were. I hope they do better, dude.
Yeah,
It's like,
no,
my God.
it's parody, but it's true. It's like, stop it.
Right?
Stop the sharing of books.
I was gonna say, my favorite part of the free libraries. This is such a tangent, but my favorite part of free libraries is seeing the repeated, the ones that are always there,
Right.
But then sometimes you just get like a lottery ticket winner. Like you find something where you're just like,
wow,
right? I love those. They're the best.
There's a story. This is again. Now we're going down rabbit holes, but there's a chapter in the book about thrifting, and I talked to a Victoria fellow named Marcus Pollard. And talking about rare. The only reason I mentioned it is he mentioned rare books. He was going through a thrift shop and he found first edition of At Swim Two Birds, and this is a book that was published in the 30s.
Okay.
And he knew that it was a first edition, and he knew that there was only 238 of them.
Oh my
because
God.
the warehouse where the first editions were held was bombed by the Nazis, and then after the war, it became a cult hit, and so it went back into print.
Yeah.
Sold that thing for over $4,000.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
But he was lamenting the fact that because he had the knowledge, he spotted that this was a first edition. But he says now there are apps, and people can just go through and click.
Right.
And say, oh, is this a first edition?
Yeah.
You don't even need.
See, for me, it's like not even, I go to them not thinking like, oh, I mean, sometimes you find something crazy like that. For me, it's just like, you find a book that you're like, oh, I haven't thought about that in 30 years. Or I didn't even, oh, I've been meaning to find that. Or,
That's the way a thrift store ought to be. But
Exactly.
now a thrift store is like a scavenger hunt, or it's like playing the stock market.
Yeah.
You're buying stuff to make a profit. Yeah. And so the whole nature of thrifting has changed a great deal.
Yeah. I feel like that expands too. That gets me thinking of things like, I was just talking with my partner about something the other day about how like adults have found a way to ruin
everything,
but everything fun, right?
Yep.
Like adults have managed to ruin Pokemon cards. They've managed to ruin, video games. They've managed to ruin comic books. They've managed to ruin toys because like, the little boo-boos and the whatevers, like even like, we both use these, Nido, they're like little squish toys, and they've now become the new fad, and now they're collecting them, and we use them because we're both autistic. And so we use them for like emotional regulation and stimming.
Right. Yeah.
But now they're like being banned because, people are going crazy collecting, and they're being banned from schools. And so it's, it's like, and it's just like you've found a way to, make this thing that's supposed to be just like fun and nice. You've suddenly now been like, how do I make money off of it?
Right.
And
now,
then you ruin it for everyone.
Now, the person, of course, who was selling the object originally wanted to make money off it, but nonetheless, there's a different level of commercialization, of monetization.
There's tiers,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I think there's one thing to be said for like, I've made a thing and I'm selling it.
Yeah.
There's a different thing between being like, okay, you're doing all that, I'm going to insert myself in the middle, and I'm going to find a way to make it harder for you to get it and harder for the person making it to sell it.
And not only that, is like when you do have an artistic product that achieves that level of fame, good luck not having that bleed back down and corrupt you in your process.
Well, exactly.
Exactly. You're going to start cranking it out. You're going to start finding some way to crank it out like a widget.
You're right.
And I mean, who has the strength of character and the unity of purpose to maintain? I mean, it's their process.
It's the inevitable poison of capitalism.
Right.
Capitalism cannot go anywhere other than fascism. But that's a can of worms we don't need to go down. So something I really related very, very on a personal level with the book was, you talk about you live alone. No spouse, no kids.
Right.
I live alone. I got divorced, and I went never living with someone ever again. And my stepmom of all people was incensed by that. She was like,
Fine.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. She was like, what if you meet someone else?
Right.
And I was like, well,
People
hopefully,
are always trying to fix me up. And
hopefully they have a nice place that they like staying at
That's
because I won't be there.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I do think of that. I mean, that's a financial burden, the fact that but it's, to me, I have to think about it just in terms of sheer expense.
Mhm.
That's my greatest luxury is
Exactly.
living alone.
That's exactly
And
right.
it's worth it for
Oh
me.
my God.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm curious, building on that, do you find that, is it easier to be, I've written in all my questions, I've written it as cheapskate because of the book, but I like frugal,
Yeah.
do you find it's easier to be frugal when you're not accountable to someone else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Right?
it is.
Yeah.
I had, like, in my whole sordid adult life, I had one live-in relationship.
Mhm.
It lasted 9 months. And
I'm jealous. I wish.
well, I drove her nuts. And one of the ways I drove her,
Mm.
she just wanted to, she just to piss me off, she wanted to spend money. Because it was a very nice thing, actually. This was her. I wasn't robbing the cradle completely. I was pretty young at the time too.
Yeah.
But this was her first time living on her own.
Sure.
She later told me after we broke up, okay, now I get it.
Right.
Now I understand what the frugality is all about. But at the time, I was just like the guy who wouldn't give.
Sure.
And it was. So no, absolutely. When you have no one to answer to but yourself.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. And it also makes travel easier.
Okay, so and building on that was the idea of like, what does the solo lifestyle make possible for you, and that maybe people with families or partnerships are maybe missing out on. Like I think travel is probably an easy one, but is there other things that come to mind? Or
If you talk specifically about being a writer, I don't know how people do it. I mean, people have kids. I tip my cap to them. I bow to them in respect, because these are people who have these responsibilities they have to meet. And then at the same time, they're carving out time to write a book. Oh, I'll tell you something. What do I have to do all day? If I want to write, I write. And I do. So like I say, I'm a fast writer. Yeah, well, good for you. You don't have anything else to do, you fool. So you pat yourself on the back. But I mean, I see other people who have kids and they have families, and I really wonder how they manage to do it. So no, I mean, it's easier to be selfish is what it is. When you live alone, selfishness comes with the territory. Right?
Yeah. It does. Do you think
until your soul atrophies? And
I was gonna say, at what point does it stop being? Does it stop being selfish and it becomes something else?
I go out and I steal candy from children now. It's
just to feel something.
I'm tired of being selfish by myself. I'm going to be selfish in the wider world.
Actually, a quick little question that I feel like builds on that. The idea of you say frugality is the best revenge, right? Revenge on what? Like, what are you taking revenge on? Where's the target here?
Everybody never said no to me in high school.
Who is it?
I've got money. Fools.
I felt like that. I felt like that was the answer, but I wanted to be sure.
It's always high school. Right? Always about.
So fair.
I just had my 50th high school reunion in Brandon.
Did you go back? Did you go for it?
I did not, but I did donate 2 books, and they were nice enough to auction them off, and apparently people actually bought tickets. So.
Wow, lovely. I've missed every reunion. There was a 5, there was a 10, there was a 15, there was a 20. I didn't go to a single one, and I think there's a different relationship in my generation to reunions because I graduated high school 2005, and we were already on MySpace and stuff like that,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then, my first year of university, we got Facebook, and so it's like we've been spying on each other
Yeah. Yeah.
from day
Exactly.
one,
Yeah. You don't
right?
need to. Yeah.
I know who became a loser. I just have to look in a mirror,
people, it's very true. I graduated in the pre-social media era
Mhm.
and also before the wheel. Um, but the other thing is, and this has nothing to do with social media or anything. I think I was in a little group of freaks,
Right.
and we called ourselves freaks, and they called us freak. We were long-haired,
Mhm.
pot-smoking freak, and my long-haired pot-smoking pals weren't going to be at the reunion, and the
Right.
people that were going to be at the reunion were people who probably didn't want to have anything to do with me, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them. They're nice people now, and we're all nice people,
Sure.
but I didn't really form any bond.
Yeah. What do you have to talk about?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
how are your kids? I
So,
don't
did you
care.
ever start smoking pot? I stopped myself.
Right,
but,
right, yeah. For the time, we'll move to the wrap ups here. I won't keep you hostage much longer
Right.
here, but
It's been brutal.
I know. It's a really real feet to the fire type journalism here on
My
Friendless.
feet are actually chained to the floor. I don't know if anybody knows.
Yeah,
That's the
we're
1st step.
hiding that from the
Yes,
camera.
that's right.
That's actually why we have this tablecloth in
Oh,
this booth
it's
here.
terrible.
You brought writing, and this is something I wanted to kind of wrap up with. You write that a good life requires a degree of discipline.
Right.
That and that's sometimes a potentially uncomfortable thing to say out loud, at least in kind of at least in the context right now. I find that discipline can sometimes be interpreted as a little bit of maybe a dirty word in a culture that prefers language of self-care and language of kind of flowery internet psychology.
Right.
Didn't actually go to university for psychology, but watched a couple TikToks, so they think they know what gaslighting means.
Thank you. You're not the only one, and I'm not the only one. People have rebelled against that word.
Oh yeah,
and I got to say, I was an early adopter of saying you don't know what that word means.
This is the thing, because I was like, no, I've been actually really, and I I know that
there is such a thing.
You just dated an asshole.
Yeah, that's right.
That's different.
You're disagreeing with me.
This is the thing. Disagreement is not.
It's not gaslighting.
Right. But so
anyway.
So talking about there's a culture of do what feels good, right?
Right.
Do you think that we're in a stage where people are starting to be ready to hear this alternate take?
Boy, again, I don't know if it's living in a bubble. I'm not exactly sure what the zeitgeist is about that. I hope so. I hope so, because I think I hope that is a process of maturation. I mean, as you get older, you begin to realize that excess. Was it Henry Miller, I think, said the road to excess. The palace of wisdom. Road to excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
Yes.
And story Henri, but I don't think so. Hunter S. Thompson shot himself.
Yeah.
I loved Hunter S. Thompson, by the way, when I was a kid. But I do think that it is a process of maturing. And I certainly learned the lesson because I was an alcoholic when I was young.
Sure.
And so it was pretty easy for me to figure out that, being completely undisciplined and giving into your inclinations fully is not a path to happiness. So once I, that was, there's no doubt about it. That was the most important thing and step in my adult life. It happened when I was 24 years old. That changed my life. That was a fundamental dividing point in my life. And that fundamental dividing point had to do with taming my worst impulses. So for me, that's, like I say, I don't know how other people relate to that question, but for me, there was no doubt about it. That's when I started to become that's when I went from childhood to adulthood, is when I learned, well, not learned, but when I got the courage to take that step and say, you know, it's time to rein yourself in.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a deeper question about that? I got sober 3 years ago.
Oh,
and thank you. And I how do I put it? This is kind of tricky. I was almost like, as this is forming in my head, I was like, maybe I should ask this off mic, because like it's maybe too personal. I don't know, but like, I've been in a funny state over the last 3 years where I felt like I've lost who I was because I'm no longer drinking and using drugs, you know, and yet I'm still in a stage where I'm not 100% sure who I now am.
Right.
And I've felt really adrift for 3 years. And I felt it's been really hard to latch on to anything, and to, you know, and it's been hard to be creative. It's been hard to write. It's been hard to do these things because
you're relearning.
They felt like they were connected to that old self. Right. It's been hard to, you know, I wrote poetry and I wrote essays and all these things. And now I'm like, how did I do that? I can't even remember how. And I'm curious, in your sort of sobriety journey, you know, like, obviously I know it's not like it's an overnight thing, but like, how did you tap into those creative elements when you got sober?
Well, you know, look, this is stating the obvious, but all any of us can do is tell our personal story,
right?
And it only has limited application. I mean, it might have application for some people, but here's the thing: when I was young, I used to write letters to my brother all the time. As I got drunker and drunker, I used to write them on shopping bags. Save money.
The plastic ones? Or
no. I would get paper shopping bags and tear them up. And that was an early Cheapskate thing. And I would write letters to my brother, and that was the only writing I did. But I quit drinking at a young enough age so that really what I was leaving behind wasn't necessarily important, because I hadn't done anything yet.
Yeah.
And I think in looking back, one thing I do realize is that I threw myself into working for the radio station I was working at, and I became the music director, and I worked like 16-hour days, and it wasn't worth it. But what it was me just like, in the same way, like, I've got a whole bunch of energy and time that I didn't have before. I'm going to put it here.
Yes. Yeah.
And I hadn't figured out yet what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I was basically in the same place you were.
Yeah.
But what I had was a job that gave me some busy work to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Busy work. And then it took me quite a long time. Keep in mind, I'm a senior citizen. My first book came out in my 50s. Right. My second book, Reservations, came out when I was a senior citizen, and so did this one.
Yeah.
So it is a long process.
Yeah.
And it took me, you know, I wasn't always conscious of it, but it took me a long time to round into form and to find out who I was as an adult. So it's a long process. I like you had started your process of creativity beforehand.
Yeah.
So now you feel like you have to relearn it.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky in the sense that I hadn't really done much.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Except drink. You know?
Yeah. But it is, I do still find that very comforting. I find that very reassuring in a way of knowing that, you know, because there are, you know, luckily for me, in the darker moments, it's never like, oh, and it's I should start drinking again, so much as it's like, crap, maybe I'm never gonna write again. But it's like, no, I know that that's just black and white, dysregulated thinking. But it's like, it's reassuring to know that it's I guess it's just about trusting the process or something, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's about trying to search for systems that work for you.
Yeah.
You had systems before.
That's just
and you've stopped those.
Yeah.
And good for you.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
You need new systems now.
Right.
I have, like everybody, here's a little bit of, if anybody's still listening, a little bit of general writing advice that I would give is don't listen to anybody else's writing advice. Just find out, the only piece of writing advice that really works is write.
Yeah.
You know, I hear people, well, I do this and I do this. Do you know, the one that blows my mind too is like Graham Greene used to write 500 words a day, and apparently he would stop in mid-sentence when he reached 500.
Yeah.
That's crazy shit. But he was a great novelist.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be like Graham Greene. I'm not. I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
And yet,
It's also a different time. It's like, it's when he was, he could do that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. But and the thing is, if you get hung up on how other people do it,
right,
you're going to get insecure.
Yeah.
You really need to find out what works for you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I do. I get up. I'm not early in the morning either. I'm not an early riser. I get up earlier than I used to. I used to really sleep late. But anyway, I get up. I vegetate for a little while in front of the computer, sit there and stare and browse. Yep. And then I have breakfast and I shower. And then I have some back exercises I have to do. So I do my back exercises. And while I'm doing those, I'm making the first of what will be eventually 2 double espressos on my home machine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I don't drink coffee, by the way, with breakfast because I'm saving the caffeine.
Right.
Once I've done the back exercises and I've made the coffee, it's writing time.
Mm-hmm.
The espresso is going to catapult me to productivity. Yeah. In a way, I'm using drugs to write.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's my process.
But it's the ritual, right?
It's
the
exactly
ritual.
right.
And,
That's
and,
exactly
and
right.
I think you're really onto something too. And it's something, I don't know why I'm so resistant to it. I think there's this part of me that's like, well, I didn't try anything and it worked. So I guess, right. You know what I mean? Right. And,
Ned Flanders and his wife, we've tried nothing and we're out of ideas.
Exactly. Right. And so it's one of those, like, the resistance to just like try a new experiment and see if it sticks. Right. Yeah.
Developing, I was telling someone else in an interview this the other day, my mom used to say, and I think she might have heard it from somewhere else, but she said, if you just start doing something consciously, within 5 years, it will become a habit. So start consciously doing the things that you want to do, and hopefully they will become habits after a while.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very last question before we wrap up. You may have just given what could have been your answer, but if someone was to read your book, close it, and if they were to take one thing away, not money related,
right?
Just something about something that they could take to pay attention to their own life. What would you hope that lesson would be?
I'll give you 2. Simple one is, I think one of the messages of the book is identify your priorities. Find what your priorities are and concentrate on those. That is one of the main points of the book. The other thing is just a piece of philosophy that I came upon when I was writing the book, and I wrote about, and I just thought it's so brilliant, and it goes all the way back to Diogenes, the wonderful cynic. Who, and for people who don't know it, cynic and cynical are not the same. We don't know why the word cynical came from the cynics, because the cynics weren't cynical. They believed in simplicity and a natural lifestyle. And Diogenes apparently lived in an urn in the edge of the.
He sat in a bath. He sat in a tub in the forum, or in the courtyard.
Yeah. And he had
one of only 2 men that Alexander the Great asked to see.
This is the legend. I mean, one of the things about Diogenes is that we don't know for sure anything he did or said because he never wrote anything.
Yes.
So, like, it might all be legend.
Right.
But the famous story is that Alexander the Great came to visit him and, what can I do for you, Diogenes? And he said, you can get out of my light. But Diogenes apparently had a philosophy. He said, the gods want for nothing. The gods have everything they want. Therefore, if you are satisfied with what you have, you are godlike. And I just thought that flips everything on their head. It's like the gods have everything, therefore I should want more because the gods have more.
Right.
No, Diogenes says that's not the point. The gods are satisfied with what they have.
Yeah.
If you are satisfied, you are living like a god. And I just think that's as good a takeaway from my book or any book. Enough is enough.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Steve Burgess, thank you so much for joining me today. What a pleasure it's been to chat with you. Before we wrap up, where would you like to steer listeners next? Where would you like them to go to find more out about you?
Gee, I don't know. I'd like them to buy the book.
Yeah.
Cheapskate and Lotus Land.
Buy it at the Book Warehouse on Main or
Book Warehouse on Main. You know, if you don't like the Book Warehouse on Main, I'm sorry, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But there's also the Book Warehouse on Broadway.
There you go, right? Yeah.
You know, those people are good people.
Black Bond Books, anyone under the umbrella.
You know, if you've got a beef with Main Street Book, I'm not saying anybody does, but you know, you get some of these.
You never know.
Authors have feuds, and but anyway, no, I just I don't want to. I am pleased to say that I'm working on another project for Harper Publishing.
Fantastic.
I won't say what it is yet.
Okay.
It's gonna be a couple of years away.
Gotcha. So it's still brewing.
Still brewing.
Excellent.
I'm working on it now.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure there will be links in the show notes for where to find your book, Cheapskate and Lotus Land. Where to find your other books. You know, give a second life to some of your other writings.
Yeah, Reservations, The Pleasures and Perils of Travel is still in print. My first book, Who Killed Mum, is at the library, but hard to find otherwise.
Fair enough.
But I'm very proud of that book. If you can dig it up from the library, people liked it. It made the top 10 year-end critics lists at both the Globe and Mail and the Toronto Star. So there you go. Pretty big stuff.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got nothing left and I have no sign off. So that's as good an end as any.
Excellent. Pleasure.